All evil needs to do to rise in a world like this is to be faced with a silent population. So, in my opinion, to evolve beyond this world, we should be speaking our truth regardless of the pressures that do surround us. Welcome to Outside the Box. I'm Alex Ansary. It is September 31st in the year 2018. So, I've been doing some thinking in the last month. And for a number of years, I've been warning about some of the issues on YouTube, and there's other things that I've discussed that I think are now coming to pass. And so it's not a time to stop doing what we're doing. It's a time to continue to have these serious discussions about the plight that we face. And so I've had my own moment, I guess, of contemplation as to what is safe content and what is not safe content. And there are certain things that I think are best suited for other platforms. But I cannot silence my own truth with regards to things that I'm seeing. You see, alternative media for years has been, and there's a number of different ways someone can describe it, non-corporate media, commenting on world affairs. A lot of it has been anti-war in nature, anti-surveillance society, anti-world government, and other topics that are flagged that aren't going to be mentioned on this video. But alternative media itself has become the news. First, we saw with the Wall Street Journal the targeting of YouTube after the election. I think the election was just simply used as an excuse. Same thing with Facebook for a larger crackdown that's ultimately bipartisan. And I've also spoken endlessly in dozens of videos. I'll be creating updated playlists in the future for those new viewers that haven't seen some of my work that's buried in the archives of this YouTube channel. But there's been a lot of disinformation from even people in the media. And it's not a conspiracy, it's a lack of education. It's people being charged up with their political bias. So you have the left wing against the right wing and the right wing against the left wing. And we have both groups claiming to almost have superiority while claiming that the other group is censoring them. And we are seeing censorship on the internet. In particular, though, we're seeing people deplatformed off YouTube. So there's a number of different things that I'm going to talk about, but I want to center on something that I've been discussing incrementally over the course of the last few years. How Alex Jones is being used to demonize other content creators. And this is coming from a position of someone that does not support his current content, but I've spoken in the Alex Jones Deception series about how he and a few others were inspiring to see what they were doing in a country and climate that was open to certain topics and ideas. And for me, when I got involved in 2004 and 2005, I talked more about this in other videos. It was a spiritual awakening for me, and it gave me purpose in life. And now we're faced with this way of life that some of us have become accustomed to being demonized more in the mainstream media. And I've had experiences after demonetization and periods in which I've seen the revenue plummet quite a bit to less than $100 a month. Keep in mind how much less I'm making compared to others. It's relevant because this is what I do, and I relocated off the grid to focus on this full time in an area that's not an urban area, without family, without allies nearby. And so I'm a little bit more into this as a part of who I am. And it's also difficult when you build up a record of content. Some employers aren't down with having a YouTuber, and I face that as well. We're going to talk about some other things that I've gone through, and also some current events, such as the story about the YouTuber that made threats to a YouTube CEO. We need to spend less time on whether or not this is a staged event or a genuine event, and understand that, unfortunately, regardless of our view on what happened, as if we're there, this is unfortunately how YouTubers are viewed wholesale. And the other thing that I've noticed is, even though a lot of people are critical of the mainstream, or what they call the mainstream media, there is a lot of antagonistic, angry, resentment, energy thrown towards the independent YouTuber that's not on either side. So we're being attacked from the mainstream media and accused of things that we're not, everything being put under the category of white supremacy, when YouTube's so much larger than that. That's BS. And there are elements, extreme contents, that I believe content creators have been promoted over time. And Alex Jones fits that bill. And so it's important that people like me continue to talk about what it's like from the independent position. And in a lot of different ways, what could be described Picture yourself walking through a neighborhood that's seen an increase in gang activity between the Bloods and the Crips, right? And maybe you're not wearing colors, but maybe you got a red shirt or a blue shirt underneath like this. And it has nothing to do with gang affiliation, right? Or think about another way. You're going into a nightclub and you have people that may look gang affiliated. They're expected to take off their hat and or their jacket, and you happen to be just stand behind the guy. And the bouncer's like, no, I told them they have to go because they're sporting the colors. You were talking to them. I just saw you give them a cigarette. You got to go too. And so just notice and try to stay away from doing to others what maybe they're doing to us or doing to you. So we have this widespread left versus right, and then guilty by association, even when they're inaccurate. So the mainstream media will even call some people alt-right. Well, they'll come back on their channels and say, I actually support Bernie Sanders. Those YouTubers that support Bernie, in some cases, are being thrown in the category of the alt-right. I'm not for one or the other. I think we need to go beyond politics, but I think that there is a place for reporting on the news from an outside-the-box perspective. I don't have to be on either side to do a video like this and discuss what it is that I see coming, the things that I've warned about manifesting in the news. Now, one note about outsidethebox.vhx.tv, I'm going to be talking more about China there exclusively. And I've talked in past videos about the Chinese influence over both Hollywood and YouTube. And a number of videos not only being demonetized, but the risk that content creators face if they continue speaking about certain issues, even if they still have a channel. And that's what some people that aren't content creators, that expect a lot from those of us that are, don't understand when we say that this is a business, because there's so much dark connotation around that. No, YouTube is a business. And so in a business, a private platform, even if they're a monopoly, and we hate that, I've never liked the media monopoly, why would YouTube be any different? They used us, you see, to build up their business. Now they're changing their business model, and they have their favorite darlings on the left and the right, but it's the small content creator that's getting X'd out by getting in their business, by talking about world events. So, you know, when I talk about the reality that that's what this is, unfortunately, when you're demonetized to continue to create content while you're demonetized, that could be pushing the envelope, that's risking your channel. If you've never lost your channel, if you've never lost something important, and picture someone building a business and it being normalized for people to, run a bulldozer through that business and say, yeah, we don't like some of your customers, or we don't like some of the things that you said, so we're going to take out your business. And seeing they had that whole controversy with the cake, and a lot of people are focused just on that. They need to get outside the box of just that story with the gay couple and the cake, but think about the metaphor for that worldwide. And so there's a lot of doublethink where people say that they support free speech, and then on the other side of their mouth, they may call for the government then to do a takeover of the big tech companies, without acting like they don't know where that's going to go when they nationalize that down the road. In a lot of ways, it already is. So this commentary will continue. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, I have a number of different things that are on my agenda today. The Alex Jones interview with a man from Iran who was actually born there, as well as his family. And I can leave a link down below. I watched the full 2.5-hour interview with a state of objectivity, although there was a lot of humor in it. And although I said, and I do believe this, it's important to not overconsume certain types of content to keep up to date with what's really going on. Things that are being said is also something that we need to do as well. We need to go and go to the source instead of just read reports. So I saw a couple of clips that highlighted, we're going to talk about Alex Jones. He talked about being ready to die. And I picked up on a couple different cryptic messages from the person that has described himself in court in his defense as a performance actor. Now, performance artist. I felt this way about him for a long, long time. So there was a period in which I supported him, and one of the only few, by the way, that would share Infowars.com paraphernalia, bumper stickers, or I was doing my cable access TV show, and I would show clips from him or read news from Infowars on my show. I wasn't blacklisted from dealing with him until I think 2007 or 8, where I asked him what his opinion was on Israel. And so it was after 2007 and 8 that I was having a lot more guests on my show, including some people before him, like Joel Skousen and a few others, Aaron Russo as well. And so there was a brief period there in which I was up and coming as someone that had the energy, that had the good luck enough to get. One day I had David Icke and Alex Jones on the same platform. So I wouldn't see myself as competition because I'm not on all these different platforms. But the real Alex Jones, with his sociopathic tendency, has only worked with lackeys and yes men. They're going to complement his worldview and not challenge it. And that's kind of become obvious by even like the change of the guard of employees. So I just shared that story to explain to those that are new that I'm not coming from a mainstream left position, actually a very rare position of saying that he was someone that inspired me a long time ago, and talking at length in hours, to the tune of hours and hours and hours on past videos. Now I've gone through periods of being very angry with him to now like stepping back and getting out of the emotional nature of it, because I believe that he is there to push our buttons. So without repeating everything that I've already said in past videos, focusing on where we are now, someone's going to look at that and say that Alex Jones needs help, that he's showing signs of suicidal tendencies. I would say that within that interview, I would steer away from most interviews with Alex Jones, because you're going to have most people that are yes men or pre-screened, if you will, by him to be the person to not ask the hard questions. Now, I don't know what his relationship is with the individual that has the YouTube channel with nearly 1 million views. It's about improving your business, the Iranian guy's channel. It's about other steps to success. And his main thing seems to have, not conspiracy stuff, various celebrities on. And so talking about their path in life, path to success, things of that nature. I guess with Alex Jones, he is a successful person, and he's there to brag about since that he's been banned on the social media sites, and he goes over 90. Sometimes he's always overestimating, but he said over 90, and now PayPal. It sets a precedent for him to be, and he was comparing himself to almost above Jesus, above level. He was using various different types of things that he had pre-programmed into his talking points to project to the world in this interview. But what was interesting about it is the host of the interview wasn't brown-nosing him. It wasn't like going on with George Norrie and having George, hey, Alex, how's it going? It wasn't like that. For a while, when I looked at the other people that put up the clips before I watched the whole nearly 3-hour interview, it looked like it was staged at first on the part of Alex Jones to deliberately look crazy, as if he's sitting down at a desk with someone with a pen and paper who's basically doing a psychological diagnosis, as Alex Jones is being potentially inputted into a mental health hospital. You know, it kind of had that tone, but it wasn't to the point where the host was being insulting to Alex. It was a series of deliberate questions as to why he believes what he believes, including 9/11. We're going to be discussing these things because what I'm seeing is validation of the things that I've said about him before, that he did a better job in the past presenting certain narratives, and then he went into a self-sabotage mode. And so as the person who's almost like playing the psychologist, and it was like a widescreen full view camera shot, she could see the body language, the positioning, and kind of get a readout. Use your sixth sense. I do believe we all have it. And I think that is critical in looking at whether or not it's a real headline or not, and whether or not it's a real interview, whether it's staged the point where it's overtly trying to go in a certain way. And it seems like these two individuals were not well associated with each other, but if someone has a big audience and someone's desperate to get on YouTube and reach a big audience, millions of people, right? It has 800,000 views in 2 weeks. The guy's channel has 1 million subscribers, nearly. So that's something that the whole world will be looking at, that particular interview. And so Alex is going to go into that. Alex Jones is going to go into that with what he's projecting and how he's interpreting what happened here. But also, when he's sat down in a non-edited interview, we can watch his inability to truly explain something like 9/11 with with the fire, with the passion, with the drive, with the photographic memory, and things of that nature. He doesn't talk like that anymore. Other things came up from the interviewer about, well, how was he able to make that prediction regarding that day when he was on cable access in July of 2001, same time period that Bill Cooper also made a similar projection. And we do know that those two were listening to each other also during that time and had a feud that was pretty nasty, especially by 2001. And then Cooper was out of the picture by November of 2001. But I stay out of speculation with regard to that because Cooper was a little bit of a hothead, and there's plenty of tapes and things to show that, despite the fact that he had a lot of knowledge. Why do I bring that up? When people are faced with stress and they're public figures, there are other things that can come through that that can defeat them from within. Alcohol's not a good thing. I rarely drink, but when I do, it's very draining. Smoking cigarettes isn't a good thing. Once in a while I do, and then I'll get a few months away from it. These are like small examples. Sometimes I eat a little healthier. Sometimes I'll do a bunch of videos without eating, and sometimes I've gone a day or two. I know what it's like to be a public person and to go through stress, so I'm not putting them down. I have empathy for that. One of the things that was clear was the alcoholic tendencies within the interview because it appeared that there was rum and coke. And I don't know how glamorous it is. I guess, part of this glamorous society, you're sitting in a plush living room. The White House doesn't look that much fancier. Maybe a little less fashion and color. But, it was a nice place. And it was like, watching two guys sit down at a bar, and it was like an interesting conversation. But when the interviewer was asking certain hard questions, hard in the sense that he's asking Alex to stay on point and explain why he believes what he believes. The body language from Alex Jones was really interesting, as well as a lot of the other pre-programmed points that were brought out. So he's going to be defensive about what his view is, for example, on Nazism, and go on a rant about how all the Nazis hate him. I've actually seen quite a few white supremacists in support of Alex Jones in recent years in certain narratives. That doesn't mean they're all on that level. It means that he's telegraphing from away from where the host is trying to lead him to answer how he really feels about certain things, and they never really went there. But Alex, in the beginning, he's comparing the censorship, which isn't right, or the banning from the private platform, to actual behavior from the Nazis that put the people in the death camps. And so it is hypocritical, and we shouldn't allow ourselves to end up with hypocritical doublethink. To say, hey, you guys are Nazis, but hey, you can't highlight this stuff where these people are actually engaged in extremist rhetoric. And I've talked about that in the past. It's controversial to even expose that or use certain buzzwords. So it's a fair question for someone to explain themselves, and for someone to not be, sitting there with a drink in their hand and then banging their hand on the table over and over and over. Body language. So there was the body language of banging the hand over and over and over to prove a point, being stuck on an issue. They're in a Sandy Hook debate for a while. But he was telegraphing all of these things to make himself out to be an angel, and then he went to the next level. And he literally said next level, where the guy asked him, well, just say a word. And this is where it almost seems staged, although I found the interview entertaining, and it is staged if you're going to sit down in front of a camera and a person has a series of questions. I'm talking about where they both know where things are going to go. And so there are interviews that are clearly staged between Alex Jones and the mainstream media at times where he's been made to look really good, as far back as 2006, where people like me were cheering Alex Jones on when he was on CNN. Do you remember that? It's like there are people without memories now. It's like Idiocracy. Alex Jones was on CNN, and it was like a glorifying moment for him, not CNN attacking him. He was on CNN, promoting the CNN poll that promoted more people than ever, most of the population questioning the official story of 9/11. Do we remember this? And so it almost seemed that I remember recording this, and I'm going to show this to my audience on Access TV, and we're all going to come together and wake up to the truth. Here we are, 12 years later. And Alex Jones is being asked about 9/11. And then he goes into these very limited, cleaned up talking points that sound nothing like him in his documentaries about 9/11. Now, you don't have to be someone that went to school or you don't have to be super smart to cognitively understand the idea that I'm sharing with you. Old Alex Jones' way of talking about 9/11, new watered down, ranting, almost acting, uncertain, locking off, turning off from eye contact, looking away from the host, and kind of, well, yeah, elements of the U.S., Israeli, Saudi, and Dick Cheney, Building 7, and boom, that's it. And then just off to the races with something else, and screaming up and down, I don't know who did it. I don't know. And now here's another thing to be aware of with regards to his current views on 9/11. He doesn't have the same views, which we know, but he came out and kind of, well, I thought 9/11 was about going after the Muslims and stuff. Now I realize that wasn't it. It was really like 10 times worse. It was about like destabilizing the Middle East and then bringing them into Europe. But it's like that's also part of the attack on those people, to destabilize their homes and for people to feel like they have to go somewhere else in order to survive, being forced into the refugee experience. Who would want that? How about a little compassion for the people that, okay, so that's doublethink. Yeah, they're all ISIS, but the West went in and destabilized. Right now in Afghanistan, countless people are being killed by this shadowy group known as ISIS. And they're people that believe that it has been created by forces that are not discussed in the mainstream media. And here we could see that group, by the way, like making a path through the Middle East and then creating more of destruction, killing more of them than they are of white Americans or Americans. More Muslims, more Afghans, more Iraqis, more people in the Middle East are dying as a result of ISIS. And that's a fact. Here we have Saudi Arabia and the genocide in Yemen. Let me just make this point. Another thing that's been verified to me is that it's very unpopular and risky to even be discussing the things that are going on overseas from an independent perspective. And both the left and the right steer away from things like that. And there are people on the left that will act like they care about refugees, Muslims, or minorities. Some may. As a political system, the Democrats, no, they don't. But see, we have a system that does good cop, bad cop, and sometimes it flips it. Okay, this is your good cop, this is your bad cop, and then they flip it. That's why you can find someone that voted for Bush, who voted for Obama, who voted for Donald Trump. You can find these people all over that keep thinking that, oh, I was duped, then I figured it out. And, oh, I was duped, then I was figured it out. Oh, I was duped, then I figured it out. Like there are tons of people out there that voted for Bush, Obama, and Trump just out of groupthink. And so the analysis and the psychology of that particular individual hasn't really been discussed. You know, and it is like something out of 1984. We've always been at war with East Asia. We've always been at war with Eurasia. Things have always been like this. Things haven't always been like this. So with regards to Alex Jones and the reference to being ready to die, let's zone in on that. He brought up his kids and said his kids would have to take the licks. And the way that he repeated himself, this is where, you know, again, I'm not perceiving a mentally ill Alex Jones, but someone that's telegraphing specific words. Now, there's about 3 different things he can mean by that. Okay? Being killed, killing himself, or himself going on a rampage, which is not what I'm foreseeing. But his content is whipping up the frenzies for the common enemy of the day. That's why it's important that you're aware of what his main talking points continue to be. He also is he's positioned, because I've been talking about this war with China that's coming for a while. He's positioned also himself in front of the research community as the guy that's going to be challenging China, while claiming that China's been doing X, Y, and Z to him. And China's been like at the core of my topic for years. And I've been considered fringe and a quack by my peers in the research community for talking about, i.e. the Chinese threat or the upcoming conflict with China, before it ramped up to this level. I was motivated by a deep-seated feeling that Leon Legant's interview with me about his visions about the occupation of our country coming. I felt that in my heart, and I said in recent years that I see a connection with solar maximum in periods of nations toppling. There's also research into solar minimum. and civilizations collapsing for other reasons related to the lack of sun, lack of crops, lack of food, starvation. Extreme solar minimums and maximums can both, especially when we do with both extremes, a deep minimum and then an extreme maximum, which can follow, right? A Carantine event followed a mini Mandarin minimum, the Dalton minimum. And so we could see a minimum and then an increase in solar activity that takes the geopolitical tensions and the wars and the civil unrest to the next level. And Alex Jones seems to be positioned for that. Another thing that he said recently in information that's being put out from his Death Star is that Obama set the precedent for martial law with particular executive orders, but now Trump needs to use it and will use it on quote unquote the deep state. But who are those deep state individuals to be arrested by the thousands? And how is this not something that sounds like NDAA? How does this not sound like the end of the Magna Carta? Especially when you have the greater reality that this can be used later on even them. So I think even within the interview, he avoided talking about certain things like showing compassion for other researchers. He was asked about, his take on this being used to hurt others. He just said in a general tone, they're coming after everybody. And he does that a lot, coming after everybody. But he wasn't like generally talking about like other people up and coming. It's just been about himself and being of this Machiavellian was another word that came up. So he's telegraphing bigger than life, something that seems to be archonic. Now, we're not going deep into the world of supernatural, but for those that are already on that level, he does show signs of being tapped into a consciousness that is non-local, right? That does deal with awareness, super knowledge, super brain. And you can be like that and be super intelligent and be super capable to a certain degree and be in bed with darkness. To have even sold your soul to the devil of this world, if you will, in the sense that they've leased out their body, their vessel, can't really sell your soul, and they have drank into the cup of the blood. Or they have fornicated to the point where they've taken in the evil. And I'm not some religious nut, no offense to people that do believe in religion, but I do believe in sexual morality, other forms of morality. And so spiritually speaking, that field that we need around our body that prevents possessions and things of that nature, that can be weakened through certain types of lifestyles, hurting people, being a bad mofo, running with the devil, and we've seen him say, Satan, get behind me, which is, there's an affirmation behind Alex Jones saying, Satan, get behind me. And there's something about a society, especially those that see themselves as Christians, at not realizing that the speech he's saying is very unchristian and has almost cryptic warlock witchcraft tone to it. So that needs to be pointed out. But the telegraphing with regards to his children. Imagine yourself Alex Jones's child, and you're not even in the mainstream. You're not even on video. And you're hearing your dad talk about, one day they're going to kill my kids. One day. And how is that something that's conducive to raising someone to be a healthy-minded, well-balanced individual? Being someone that was a fan of him back in the day, I'll tell you, there's a lot of time it was wasted with people thinking that everything was going to collapse early on. There was a lot of monetary survival business element of it's all going to collapse now. You have to buy my product now. Now other people are doing digital courses, even on how to buy gold and silver. And so that's what we're dealing with. We've been dealing with the business aspect. And not all aspects of business are negative. I think that people get so angry at corporations, they forget that we do need to eat. We do need to generate income, whether that be audience-supported income or things of that nature, so we can continue doing what we're doing. But there's a fine line between that and then building an empire where there are audience members that gravitate to supporting the millionaire because they're already they have the potential of being alpha. They have the potential of doing something worldwide, whereas what I do is not on that level. So it's not going to attract that audience member that only believes in supporting the person that's already out there with the big boys in the media. And that's something that a lot of people want to see first before they donate to someone's platform, that you're actually reaching people at a certain level. Part of it's psychological. There are some people that wanted to support what it is that I do, but under 4 people. after I talked about my demonetization. That's after like 12 years on YouTube. And so the last month was really eye opening, even more so. It was like a trial run. Like this is what will happen when you face this level of challenge. And it's like the only news right now is being generated about Alex Jones and his plight, but not all the other small YouTubers. Right now, what if the New York Times, the Washington Post rather, did a story on the small YouTuber with an independent voice that wasn't associated with politics that's being caught up in the middle? So in a world where people are talking about racism here and there and discrimination, prejudice here and there, usually for their own agenda, not because they really care, or sometimes they care about the persecution they faced or their group, but they're not willing to look at other persecutions. Like I've said in other videos, if we find ourselves persecuted in some way, then maybe we need to look also at ourselves or at our soul. It may not be our current behavior, but I do believe karma does exist. We could be dealing with challenges that are thrown at us that we don't even understand because of some other energy or something somewhere else. Or we could be tested, or situations are often there to help us evolve and become stronger, to help us see the writing on the wall, which is why I do ask that if you support my work and are financially able, that you sign up to outsidethebox.vhx.tv. And that's going to be my side platform where on certain issues, I'm like, nope, that's not a YouTube topic. I'm going to talk about it over there. And because I have no interest in being number one, number two, number three, like a lot of these ego things that even I've been stuck in, and then the idea of people trying to almost have a monopoly on the topic or think they're the sole source. I may be one of the few that talks about the links between wars breaking out and solar flares, but it's more important for me, like I said in the analogy that I mentioned in another video, to just continue what I'm doing and increase my own line and to do it for future generations that may appreciate the information, and to not do it out of ego, to not do it for the view counts, to not do it to be number one in a niche. And there's a lot of men out there that also talk about solar flares and other issues that are in the competitive niche. And they're the ones that are really into the business model element of it. I actually don't have any real business model for growth. I don't have any marketing plans. I quit social media, which is a business no-no. And I'm pulling back from all that. I'm just simply trying to accrue enough resources on a monthly level to continue living off the grid, to eat. And in many cases, I eat nothing but eggs and oatmeal. So it would be interesting if the mainstream media or the alternative media talked about like either an off-gridder or a YouTuber that wasn't like the rest, and how we're a group of people that are left behind. And I'm not going to be silent about the things that matter. I'm not going to leave this off the YouTube platform. It's not going to be a topic every day. I'm going to continue to specialize in reporting on solar activity, geopolitics, relationships, other philosophies, spirituality, spiritual warfare. Sometimes they're the same. Sometimes they're different conversations when we talk about spiritual parasites. And then there's other topics that I want to involve myself in more, like talking about mental health, news regarding mental health. You know, I've come across information that my area has 3 times the national average of suicides. But the problem is, go ahead and plug this in here. The difficulty is in the reality that there isn't an effort that I can see from these groups that are concerned about suicides from hearing from people about the real causes or the solutions. So we'll talk more about that in another video, but this is connected with that. Again, imagine if you had, your own lemonade stand, or you had your own business, family business or independent, and your livelihood has been based on that, and ultimately you're just trying to help people. Well, with independent media, free media, alternative media, that's my agenda. That's the agenda of a lot of people, to help people. And for the most part, it's being marginalized into a very dark box because of people like Alex Jones. And if you try to expose the conspiracy of Alex Jones to people on the left of the mainstream media, they mock us with this weird smirk and say, oh, so it's a conspiracy within a conspiracy. Well, you're even crazier. And then we just step back like we've been exiled from society. And like that saying, you don't want to be that nail that stands out. You're the first one to get hit. Well, look at how that's playing out in YouTube, literally. Going to our next topic. James Corbett of the Corbett Report It's going to be kind of a longer video today. And I think some days it's better to do a longer video than a bunch of videos. James Corbett has been attacked by The Verge, I believe. And they're now showcasing other YouTubers other than Mr. AJ that they don't like simply for talking about the Federal Reserve. And James Corbett said that his documentary or video on the Federal Reserve was scrubbed from the search engine results looking up the Federal Reserve. And so I don't know him personally. I'm familiar with his content, although I don't watch all of his videos. But his China, the one world order government, very few things are safe to say about that anymore on YouTube. Again, they're going to associate that with InfoWars and AJ from here on out. Watch and see. And that's unfortunate. People really are dumbed down like something out of Idiocracy. There was another reference made. Donald Trump was saying that the Republicans want to keep Medicare and the Democrats want to get rid of it in order to move it into other areas. Right? And so people are commenting on, well, that's new for Trump to say that the Republicans are for Medicare, or for him to put out that position. In fact, there's a lot of people that aren't for that. And so for him to do that bait and switch, like, it's like defying logic that someone could kind of switch their stance and people won't even notice it. And it is like something out of Idiocracy. And if you haven't seen that movie, a lot of people may find that funny and, maybe see a comparison between Barack Obama and the person that played the president in Idiocracy. But I think it's almost a little closer now. And I always was considered the conspiracy kook for saying that I believe that Bush was acting, that he really wasn't that dumbed down. And people find offense in that. Like, yes, he was. I don't believe the system puts people that are really dumbed down in positions of power. I believe that's ridiculous. I'm not even going to touch that Kool-Aid. Moving on to Obama, the bowing, the weird postures. There's times where he's playing the charismatic speaker. There's times where he's saying really dumb things, where it's almost like the Obama version of putting food on your family. But when we got to Donald Trump, there seems to be a progression of things getting worse. And so don't think that, it ends with Donald Trump. He's still almost playing nice guy as he screws us like Barack Obama, whereas Bush would just kind of came out, yeah, time for war. You're either with us or you're with them. And that tone, though, has continued. You're either with us or you're with them. Well, who's us? Well, I tell you what us includes. It's the agenda of the military-industrial complex that has not been changed for many, many years. And it was already ongoing in the Middle East before 9/11. And so what we haven't seen are people that are coming that are operating outside of that because the system's rigged to keep everybody out that might change something. And so if someone's going to come and purport that things have changed because they want things to change by osmosis, some sort of metaphysical, and Alex Jones was using the word metaphysical, like 10 times in 5 minutes in order to really try to, play into that Obi-Wan Kenobi role. And see, there's psychosis in that. But I believe Alex Jones knows better. He is playing into that psychosis role bigger than life, and still speak in this manner like, that he's... The other thing that he mentioned was, you see, this guy that has the YouTube channel, he's interviewed a lot of people that work for the mob. So not only celebrities and self-improvement. Talking about the guy that interviewed Alex Jones in the 3-hour interview done in the last few weeks. And so when Alex Jones goes on, he's talking more like a mobster than a hero also. There were like different personalities that were coming through in the interview. Like, I did my job. I did the job. And, like I'm going to do my time. Yeah, they're probably going to kill my kids. Just playing into that role of some... And we are like literally in the society of the worship of the gangster. There was a time where I thought Casino and Goodfellas, I think those are great movies. They're very entertaining. But I knew even then that they were glamorizing the gangster way of life. Well, as we were going into Big Brother, to a point where we don't live in the modern day and age where it's normal to be living like those guys out of those movies. Or The Sopranos, which I don't watch. What little I saw of the actors and some of the clips, it's come off as something that is overtly promoting these mob figures. And some of these personalities, and it leaves much to be desired with comparison to Sopranos and Goodfellas and things of that nature. But I noticed this early on. society promoting the bad boy. And people, of course, are going to be more aware of what the bad boy is doing, whether they like the bad boy or don't like the bad boy, or say they don't like the bad boy while they really like the bad boy. Because there's all this archetype of the bad boy really being the hero in our fallen biological state. And if you want me to explain it to you, I will. A lot of people operate on biological code. So if they see somebody, this is how some women are drawn to violent men, but not all, but it's in the code, where a nice guy that isn't being boastful at the nightclub trying to start fights will go home alone. And it's that cellular programming that the brute is going to be a stronger defender of the tribe. And there's ways in which Alex Jones has kind of glorified that brute as the good guy. And it is like the WF, the WWE, where the good guy turns into a heel, where Hulk Hogan's now promoting New World Order, and he's got that strange beard. Here's Alex Jones with the beard. Here's Owen with the beard. Here's the Spartan imagery. Here's the medieval imagery. Here's like the 300 imagery, like 300 Spartans. And you see all of that stuff coming together in obsession with Roman imagery. How many of these video games have you seen pop up on your computer when you try to watch free movies, trying to lead you into this world of elves and warlocks and Dungeons and Dragons and medieval Lord of the Rings type? And see, there is gnosis and truth in some of the fantasy world stuff. There's also a lot of darkness. People get deep into that. I'm not going to start mentioning some of the pagan deities that have been rising in popularity. I think that can trigger certain things, energetically speaking. I'm not so much talking about the bots of YouTube, but things of more the etheric realm. Remember not to say Beetlejuice 3 times. And so moving to my next point, glad I made these notes. When Alex Jones loses his channel, or right before he loses his channel, he appears to have a bloodshot eye. Okay, there's symbolism in the one eye. Okay, so for a guy who's already doing this, I'm not saying that if we do this or you do this over and over and over, that it means something. It's more or less when he or Chris Green do this for over 10 seconds, right? It's one thing if you're doing this and then you move on to other, it's normal to talk with your hands. It's not just Italiano. It's people that are emotionally charged, talk with your hands. But you don't just do this for a 10, 15, 1 minute plus period in time. So for the first time ever, I've seen a unity of people doing this. There's speculation as to what that means. We can leave out the speculation and recognize that this was not a hallmark, yo, I'm with the club hand sign. The other thing that Alex Jones was doing in the interview with the Iranian gentleman was doing the devil horns way out in the open, over 50 times. Where in the past, again, the past Alex Jones, you would go to Infowars.com and they would show you who the member of the elite were based on them doing this. We're talking old school Bohemian Grove Infowars. Here's Cheney, here's Bush, here's them, here's that, da-da-da. And then Alex Jones saying, no, it's not the Texas Longhorns. It's El Diablo. Okay. You got a point there. We definitely are seeing a lot of people that are really creepy do that. And here's Alex Jones years later, no longer accusing them of using a sign that's associated with the New World Order, no longer saying that they're doing that's how they're exposed, and then moving to doing it himself. Now, again, this is years after saying that he was receiving information from the government. They're playing a part in his show behind the scenes today at the Pentagon, that his friends are preparing for martial law. People high up in the Pentagon, they're getting ready to make some moves, getting ready to make mass arrests. Does this sound familiar? Baker's going to be arrested, mass arrest. You see, and now we're a society that's being conditioned to cheer on concentration camps. There are people actually made movies about concentration camps that are promoting what's going on now. Okay? It's not just Alex Jones. We have the individual in Chicago as well. The Next News Network. We could see a metamorphosis in what he was doing back in the day to what he's doing now. A lot of people have just been following the InfoWars model while not copying it exact, altering it just slightly, but they realized, whether they have people working with them or whether it's just their own greed and corruption, they realized that certain niches will do well in the social media complex, even if a lot of their rhetoric and ranting is about them being held down by the social media ghettos. So the question is, because the idea came from the host. Is any of what you're doing self-inflicted? And it's interesting how the truth comes out in a question without it being scripted. So there is a little bit of a belief in self-inflicted wounds with regards to those that are serving the real elite and rituals that are being played out. And I believe that certain rituals and hand signs are being played out. We could see a lot of the symbolism, the Swiss cross, many other things, the V or the double V, which he used to do on the V for Victory posters. So there's a whole plethora of Masonic symbols that he's used in front of an audience where he's spoken for years to be anti what those things represent. So with regards to his eye, I think there's something to that. The timing of it, I mean, there's been a long time for him to be on the air, to be like, rolling over and poking himself. And he said on camera, I rolled over and I poked myself. And I'm thinking, is there a little bit of telegraphed truth in a statement about making a self-inflicted wound to his eye within days or hours of being kicked off YouTube? So let's go to the next point. One more thing to mention about James Evan Pilato, or rather James Corbett. Little dyslexia there. James Evan Pilato I met only once or twice. Barely got a chance to know him in Portland when I was doing my own thing. But I think that he's done a lot of great reports. He's with Media Monarchy. He's posted a number of my things, and he was one of my earliest supporters, one of the only few, actually, back in the day that would repost some of my videos when they were on Google Video. I also did some work with Clyde Lewis, was his producer at one point. So the level of professionalism between James Evan Pilato and James Corbett is the best with regards to alternative media. Not yelling, not screaming, being professional, and having like a decent production. I mean, these are the type of guys together that could be on the mainstream media if there was a place that was open to those ideas. If we're just to talk about professionalism and delivery and accuracy of information, I mean, those guys get 5 gold stars. And there's some things that I've learned from them and have been impressed at their brief level of delivery with really important news, not going too far, not overselling, and then connecting it with another story over there. See, the mainstream media doesn't like to see competition. And it's not just the mainstream media, it's also print journalists that don't like to see other people with an opinion. There's a lot of ego. The other thing, let's see, that I'm going to mention. See, we're going into solar minimum. We'll cover that in another video. There are less protests during solar minimum and an increase in cosmic rays, also known as galactic cosmic particles. It's not really a ray. And I do believe that these can wreak havoc on mental health. So we're going to be talking about that in another video. Mainstream media conspiracy theories add to the confusion, insult, and the problem itself because Netflix and Vudu have documentaries on conspiracy theories and a lot of things that go in very skeptical directions, but rarely does it really deal with moving things forward, genuine spirituality. What are we doing here? Some of those very things are the things that are demonized. We have a situation, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up here, at an organ where, and this is where a lot of people, this is another example of how the media will latch onto something to paint all YouTubers with a broad brush because of the antics of Alex Jones and others. A guy by the name of Gregory Douglas, somewhere in Oregon, he said that he was being held back by YouTube. I'm not sure exactly what he tweeted, but he went on basically a Twitter rampage. And social media seems to bring out that aggression, and people seem to do things that they normally wouldn't do around their friends and family. Things people troll, things people do to other people online are usually like things that they keep hidden from others. And so that's also one of the reasons why we have a lot of people that are not revealing their true self as to who they are when they're interacting with others on the internet, which is a creepy thing because somebody has to discern whether you're dealing with just a normal troll or someone that's from the inside of the government or somebody else that's trying to create sabotage, right? And those things shouldn't be shrugged off. Those things happen all the time. In fact, I've been lucky that I haven't dealt with some things that other people have faced. That's one of the reasons why I do believe there must be a divine creator, because there are certain things that could have happened that haven't happened. There are also certain things that have happened that have been pretty unfortunate. And it always seems to come back to the commentary that I've done on the archons, the supernatural, going beyond blaming Bush, blaming Obama, blaming Trump, things of that nature, and discussing the fact that we're in a world that has unseen influences. And there's something about talking about those things on YouTube that can attract very strange individuals or invasive forms of surveillance, where people may masquerade to be supporters when they're actually data mining or trying to do some other energy warfare or distraction. It's really about, can you distract someone from their truth? Can you distract someone from their path? Can you distract someone from their topic? And a lot of people don't even know if they're motivated to do this, because they're just acting out with the machine, the ADHD machine, the short attention span machine that doesn't have memories, things of that nature, or where things go down the memory hole. So a lot of people are stuck in this fight or flight in a very stressful world, and they're stuck in the illusions of separation. So small YouTubers like myself have to contend with the people that would rather we not be speaking our truth. They're just random organic viewers. Plus, we have the mainstream media painting us as the new evil of the world, as the new extremism, simply because we're on YouTube. So we actually have a situation, again, where it's gang warfare. And it's not just about colors or political parties. You could be discussing spirituality and have atheists and Orthodox religious people both cursing you to hell by speaking of your own spiritual views, talking about power within, knowledge within. For years, people have been burned at the stake for talking like that. Some things haven't changed, although there are laws in place to prevent some of us from actually being put up on the cross and crucified. I think I need to get up because there's a cat outside. One of the things that I've realized is that we can have a lot of compassion for cats, more so than humans. This is my cat here. But sometimes animals are going to be our best friends. They're going to like us more than humans. This cat's showing me more compassion than most humans. And it's the closest form of life to me. So I may feel isolated from humans. Now I no longer feel isolated, though, from all forms of life. For a while, though, I was feeding some wild cats for about a year. And the mother cat had some kittens, but they're wild and aggressive. And so they will attack this cat. It's not kumbaya, right? There's also diseases with regards to feral cats in specific regions. This is one of those regions to where there's a rabies issue. And so I've given a lot of compassion, right, to those cats. But yet what I've experienced from them is just more animalism, as if, hey, well, you're not exactly our prey, but we can use you for food, but we're not going to recognize you as an ally, even though you haven't hurt us. So I just want to throw that out there, because there are people out there that do elevate all animal life above human life, including a lot of vegans. From my experience, most vegans will eventually drop out of my program, because I will challenge their lack of compassion for overseas victims of war. So most vegans that I've come across don't also believe that there is a spotlight that needs to be shown over the things that are done to humans. And it's unfortunate that there's such a strong disconnect. But I bring that point in every now and then to say that, I've witnessed that mother attacking her own children over food. And so just because little creatures are fuzzy and, like little rabbits, yeah, you've seen rabbits rape other rabbits, right? So there is just this nature of being in a fallen world, a world where many forms of life are sexually violated, unfortunately. So we need to keep that in mind, that blaming all men isn't the answer, or men of a particular ethnicity, right? Someone could say, don't blame all white men while blaming all Middle Eastern men. Hypocrisy. Like their own argument blowing up in their face. How about don't discriminate against all men or women? Understand that mass consciousness is fallen. Therefore, out of every one of these categories, you're going to see that dysfunction. You're going to see that dysfunction. For all the things that are being put out from people that are proud to be moving in a white supremacy direction, I don't hear very much about their own self-analysis as to how many derogatory things they themselves are saying about other white people that don't agree with them. Libtards, people on the left, people being called soy boys. Okay, so we have white supremacists and others that aren't white supremacists. They're just being in a jock mentality, as if they have a big body to be calling someone a soy boy. Okay, it isn't healthy per se to be the guy with 350 pounds with the McDonald's gut to maybe be talking about the guy who's not overweight as the soy boy. So we also have things like that going on that don't really make sense. Again, we're in the land of idiocracy. And so with situations like Gregory Douglas going on Twitter and making threats of violence to YouTube CEO, now on cue, this is the new headline in the mainstream media, to amp up the YouTuber threat. So, for years, people have really wondered why some of us have been working on promoting other platforms. It's because of the hammer that's dropping. It's not a hammer that drops like this, and it's like an event. There's like stages. But there would also be stages to see signs of genuine improvement, like, for example, with YouTube. And even though my channel is remonetized, it's going to take months to generate something like $100 from ad revenue. Just in case you didn't know, any average video you see from me that's monetized with 100 views, 150 views, that's about a quarter. That's about 15 cents in some cases. In other cases, the video is demonetized, so it doesn't make 5 cents. That's why when you support via PayPal, it does a lot to help this continue and to keep me focused here. And this is where I need to remain, and I need to put more work into this than ever before and not limit my work to the social media tech giant ghettos. I'm going to move forward with outsidethebox.vhx.tv. Please sign up for $5.95 per month. If you love this content and you want to hear me continue to talk about those button issues that we know we probably shouldn't talk about on YouTube, please sign up today. You can also sign up on Patreon because I will obviously continue to be here on YouTube. And I'm going to be putting more time and focus to the best of my ability from here on out, more so than the past. That means I have to become an increasingly disciplined person, a person that stays home for days, making video after video after video, and not letting the toxicity of the stress of others, the mental health of others, the physical health or lack of spiritual health in others affect me in a literal physical way regarding my own environment, or a etheric way. The fact that I'm on the internet, I'm connected to people of different levels of consciousness worldwide. But it's like we have to seize the moment. We have to go beyond the fear of death, but we have to go beyond, right, the idea of wanting to die. We have to go beyond that state of consciousness that says, I don't know how I can live here on this planet anymore. I will come back and I will talk further. But I'm telling you, this seems to be a big archonic blueprint to create so much stress on the planet that people check out. And I'm here to challenge that narrative as well, regardless of whatever energy blowback I face. And I appreciate your support. Until the next video, I'm Alex Hanser, reminding you the path to the ultimate truth and place of power still lies within.